We're back with our Solutions Express. Does anybody have a whistle? I think they do. Thank you very much. We're looking at the importance of partnerships and how success in business, government, and life in general depends on our ability to work together. There is no us and them, if you will. There is simply us and us. And in order to create jobs, grow businesses in general, we need to build bridges, not moats, when it comes to this economy. And joining us now to talk about it is the former boss at Disney, founder of the Tronante Company, Michael Eisner, written a new book called Working Together, Why Partnerships Succeed. And Mr. Eisner, it's a pleasure to see you. Why do partnerships succeed?
They succeed because 1 and 1 sometimes adds up to more than 2. You get joint skills, you get joint checks and balances. Your ethical path is more certain, because if you tend to go off the tracks, your partner may say, is this the way to go? You're dealing together with a smell test as opposed to a bunch of nice lawyers or accountants telling you you can get away with things which maybe you really can't. And it's more fun. You know, you're in the foxhole together when it goes bad, and when it's good, you can high-five together. And I looked at all sorts of partnerships. I looked at myself and Frank Wells. I looked at Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. I looked at Bill Gates and his wife in philanthropy. I looked at Ron Howard and Brian Grazer in movies. You know, great Academy Award, many 30 years of movies. Valentino and Giancarlo Giametti in fashion, 50-year love story partnership. Some bridge players, the founders of Home Depot. Joe Torre and Don Zimmer as bench coach with 4 World Series of the Yankees. I really looked at what it was that created partnerships that work, and I'm pretty aware of what it is that creates partnerships that don't work.
So in brief, what is the difference between a working partnership and one that is unlikely to function? You
need people that are able to share. You need people that are able to keep their ego intact. You can't have envy against your partner. I was talking to Warren Buffett, and he was talking about the 7 deadly sins, and he said, you know, gluttony, that's okay. You feel good, you eat. Later, you feel a little fat. He says lust has its advantages, of course, but not always comes out the right.
Also has its problems.
Yes. Envy, you're sick from the moment you think about it till it's over, which it never is if you're that kind of person. You have to be selfless as it relates to your partner. You have to root for your partner. And if you look at Charlie Munger, for 50 years rooting for Warren and being the kind of, not really in his shadows, but not interested in being in the spotlight.
How would you apply all of this now? I'm going to ask you now to solve the world's problems. You can tell where I'm headed. Obvious division in our government. Not rich versus poor, left versus right, Tea Party versus GOP, extremism abounds. Business, I want to read something to everybody, if you just bear with me 1 second. This is from Michael's book, Working Together. Listen to what Mr. Eisner wrote in this book. He says, if there's a single central story to be written about business in the 21st century, it is sadly and regrettably a story dominated by a handful of individuals who infected the economy with deceit, manipulation, immorality, essentially the death of honesty. From destructive failures like Enron to the sociopathic deception of Bernie Madoff to irresponsible banking and real estate executives and government figures, a lack of ethics has crippled the business world over the last decade. I would argue that you could assert that a similar thing to our government. In observing it, how do you take what you've learned and try to apply it to fixing it?
Well, we're all animals in a way. And I go back to Chagall's paintings where he would paint a horse and a man. And if the horse was gigantic and the man was tiny, the man would be thrown off. The horse representing emotions, the man representing intellect. If the horse is too small and the man is too big, the horse can't get up. You need a simpatico between the two. You have to have intelligence and you have to have emotional stability. We teach our kids in kindergarten to share, right? Don't spit on your sister.
The cookies, the milk, whatever.
Right. They get to 5th grade, kill a kid. Be number 1. Get number 1 on the SATs.
Just take care of yourself. The hell with everybody else.
And that.
What's wrong with that mentality?
Well,
what's wrong with me saying I'm going to get mine, and you can go to heck or hell, and so can everybody else?
There was a Harvard longitudinal study beginning with a class of Jack Kennedy. Every 5 years for 70 years, started by W.T. Grant to find better store managers. Harvard dropped that after a decade, and they decided to try to find the good life. And what was it after 70 years of these males, because they were single sex, that met that met the criteria for good life. It wasn't wealth. It wasn't exercise. It wasn't food. It was a single, sustained relationship. Could be a spouse, could be a business associate, for that entire people. The 10 people I interviewed, they're happier. You are happier, not in conflict. So when you take it to a larger extent and you say government or business first, I prided myself at Disney that we did what was called synergy. The people inside the company made partners with other divisions, tried to work together, tried to check their ego at the door. Take that to government, just our own government.
Sure.
The jealousy, the envy, the getting electability, the money, it works against working together. So you start, if your enemy is the rest of the world, I don't mean physical enemy, but economic enemy, you better get together first. If you don't get together first and try to leave envy, jealousy, basic human instincts, at least in check, you're in trouble. Then you take the whole country as it deals with the rest of the world, or Israel and the Arab world. There has to be some understanding of the other side's issues. You don't have to be friends, but you just have to get rid of the basic internal animal aggressiveness to try to come to a reasonableness. Now, I talked about real interpersonal relationships. I did not talk about government.
No, you talked about specific working partnerships that you referenced.
But if you see Don Zimmer sitting next to Joe Torre in the dugout, when neither men had won a World Series ever without the other, and they learned how to respect each other. Don Zimmer didn't want Joe Torre's job. Joe Torre didn't think he did, so he listened to his advice. And then when they had a owner like Steinbrenner, who drove them both crazy, they were together against Daddy. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like strong siblings against irrational parents.
So it's kind of like me and my staff against the management at NBC.
Exactly.
Although,
exactly. You do a
joke.
TV show of that. So I think, you know, it's never going to be perfect. No partnership is perfect. And it's ups and downs. Like no marriage is perfect. But a marriage that sustains for a long period of time, you learn how to deal with the inconsistencies.
The book is called Working Together. The author is Michael Eisner. You can see it here, that the subheading, if you will, Why Great Partnerships Succeed, may actually make you happier based on all sorts of academic research, and it's possible you could also have a more successful business, marriage, or government. Who knows? Would you mind sticking around for a second?
Sure.
We've got a Wall Street thing
Sure.
here. But Oliver Stone, we'll get a movie review out of you.
Right.
Up next, the DR show, hitting the red carpet. We'll keep our